Have you ever stopped to think about what's really powering your body behind the scenes? You know, the stuff that builds your DNA, protects your nerves, and keeps you energized? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on a true unsung hero of nutrition, vitamin B12. Let's get into it. So, to kick things off, a little pop quiz for you. Out of all the vitamins our bodies need to function, which one do you think is the most complex, chemically speaking? Just take a guess, because the answer is pretty fascinating.
If you guessed vitamin B12, you got it. Not only is it a molecular beast, it has a totally unique origin story. I mean, think about this. It's the only vitamin that's made exclusively by tiny microorganisms, bacteria and archaea, some of the oldest life on our planet. That means no plant and no animal can actually create it from scratch.
So let's get properly introduced to this amazing molecule. Its scientific name is cobalamin. And right there in the name is a huge clue to what makes it so special.
Okay, so at the very center of every single B12 molecule, you'll find something you won't find in any other vitamin, an atom of cobalt. That's where it gets the name cobalamin. And this little metallic core is basically its superpower, allowing it to do all these critical jobs, from helping us make energy from our food to literally building the blueprint of life, our DNA.
So we know it's complex. We know it's unique. But what does this master key actually do inside our bodies? Let's break down its most important, non-negotiable jobs.
I love this analogy. Think of B12 as the protective plastic coating on the electrical wires in your house. In your body, those wires are your nerves. B12 is essential for building something called the myelin sheath, which is basically that insulation. Without it, the signals in your brain and nervous system start to short circuit. Not good. And that insulation job is just one of its 3 core functions. So we've got nerve health, check. Then there's DNA synthesis. Anytime your body needs to make a new cell, which is, all the time, it needs B12 to help copy the DNA correctly. This leads right into number 3, red blood cell formation. B12 is absolutely crucial for these cells to grow up properly in your bone marrow. Without it, you can end up with a type of anemia where the cells are too big and don't work right. So, what happens when this hero goes missing? A B12 deficiency is no joke. It's a really serious health issue, and if you don't catch it, it can lead to damage that you just can't reverse. The really tricky thing about a B12 deficiency is how sneaky the symptoms are. They can be so vague at first, like just feeling tired all the time, and you might blame it on a dozen other things. But it can get much worse, progressing to neurological issues like numbness and tingling, trouble with balance, or even serious cognitive problems that can look a lot like dementia. So who really needs to pay attention here? Well, it's a few key groups. Vegans and vegetarians, obviously, because they don't eat the primary sources. Older adults are also at high risk because our bodies tend to make less stomach acid as we age, and you need that acid to unlock B12 from your food. For the same reason, people who've had gastric bypass surgery or who use antacids long-term can really struggle with absorption. And if you need a number to really drive this home, check this out. Some studies of vegan populations who aren't supplementing have found deficiency rates as high as 80%. That is a staggering statistic. 4 out of 5 people. Okay, enough of the doom and gloom. That's the problem. Now let's talk about the solution. Where can we actually reliably find this vitamin? It's time to look at the source code. We have to keep coming back to this one central fact. Animals do not make B12. They get it and they store it. They pick it up from the bacteria in their environment or from the bacteria living in their own guts. Then we come along and get it from eating those animal products. So for us humans, this boils down to 3 and only 3 really dependable options. Number 1 is animal-derived foods, your meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. For anyone on a plant-based diet, number 2 is fortified foods, things like breakfast cereals, plant milks, and especially nutritional yeast. And then, of course, there's the most direct route of all, a good old dietary supplement. But hang on a second. What about all that buzz you hear about getting B12 from plants, like spirulina or certain types of seaweed? Well, this is probably one of the biggest and most dangerous myths out there when it comes to vitamin B12. And here's why it's a myth. See, not all B12 is the real deal. A lot of these plant-based sources, like spirulina, contain something called a pseudovitamin. It's basically a counterfeit B12. It looks kind of like the real thing, but it's a key that doesn't fit the lock in your body's cells. And what's worse, these fakes can actually get in the way and block the real B12 from doing its job. So relying on them is not just ineffective, it can actually be harmful.
Okay, let's wrap all this up into a simple, clear action plan. This is what you really need to know to make sure you're covered. So, how much do we actually need? Well, according to the official US guidelines, a typical adult needs about 2.4 micrograms a day. Now, a microgram is tiny, like incredibly tiny, but it's so potent, and as we've seen, it's absolutely essential. And you can see here how those needs bump up a little bit during pregnancy and especially during lactation. And that makes perfect sense, right? B12 is being passed to the baby, both in the womb and through breast milk, so mom's intake becomes crucial for the baby's healthy development. And here it is. This is probably the single most important takeaway from our entire discussion today. If you are over 50 or if you follow a plant-based diet, the smartest and most reliable strategy is to actively seek out fortified foods or just take a B12 supplement. Don't leave it to chance. So, we'll leave you with this final thought. Vitamin B12 is this quiet, powerful force working constantly to keep you healthy. So take a second and think about your own diet, your own lifestyle. Is this unsung hero getting the recognition and the spot on your plate that it truly deserves?